She came strutting up to me at the pool like she ran the whole damn zip code. Her phone was already in her hand, mid-dial, probably straight to 911. "You're trespassing," she snapped, her voice sharp and loud enough to draw stares. But what she didn't know was that I had legal access, signed documentation, and a landlord who helped build the very community she was claiming to protect. That call she made? It started something bigger than she ever imagined. What unfolded next involved police reports, lawsuits, and a secret buried for a decade, one that would strip her of everything she thought she controlled. If you've ever witnessed a power-drunk HOA president self-destruct in real time, buckle in. This one's the kind that turns into neighborhood legend. Even one of the responding officers told me afterward, "That's the most satisfying HOA takedown I've ever seen." I never thought that moving into a quiet suburban neighborhood would turn me into an accidental whistleblower. But last summer, that's exactly what happened. My name is Griffin Rhodes. I'm a 34-year-old freelance landscape architect. I had just signed a lease for a small, charming rental home in a development called Lake Haven Grove, a peaceful spot adjacent to the more upscale Sunny Glen Estates. The house was older, had personality, and most importantly, it came with access to the community pool, a fact confirmed in black and white in my lease agreement. My landlord, Donovan Creed, had explained it clearly. This place comes with full pool privileges, even though it's technically outside Sunny Glen. It was part of a deal I struck when I invested in the development years ago. It seemed unusual, but legitimate. I didn't think much of it at the time. A few weeks after moving in, on a blazing Saturday afternoon, I decided to take advantage of that pool. I grabbed my towel, sunscreen, and headphones and walked the short distance to the pool, tucked behind the neighborhood clubhouse. It wasn't crowded, families playing, a few teenagers, and sunbathers lounging in silence. I found an empty lounger, spread my towel, kicked off my sandals, and was just about to dive in when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find a woman in her early 50s standing behind me. Her platinum blonde bob looked like it had been sculpted by a Beverly Hills stylist. She wore oversized sunglasses, an impeccable pastel tennis outfit, and a permanent expression of mild disapproval. "Excuse me," she said, in that specific tone you recognize instantly, the tone of someone who has never been told no in her life. "I'm Madison Langley, president of the Sunny Glen Homeowners Association. May I ask where you live?" I stood up and smiled politely. "Sure. Griffin Rhodes. I just moved into the cedar-shingled house on Whisper Trail in Lake Haven Grove." Her expression turned frosty. "Lake Haven? Then you're not part of Sunny Glen. This pool is for residents of Sunny Glen and their guests only. I'll need you to leave." I blinked, surprised. "Actually, there's an agreement. My landlord made it clear I have full access rights. It's even in my lease." Her lips thinned. "I've been president here for 7 years. I assure you, there is no such agreement. Now, please leave before I have to call security." I didn't want to make a scene, so I picked up my towel and left, red-faced, humiliated, and frankly, furious. That night, I checked my lease again. Sure enough, the clause was there in bold. "Tenant shall have full access to Sunny Glen community amenities per access agreement signed June 15, 2012, between Sunny Glen Development Committee and property owner Donovan Creed." That wasn't vague. It was ironclad. The next day, I called Donovan. He wasn't just surprised. He was livid. "She pulled this stunt again?" he said. "That agreement was drafted when I helped fund the initial infrastructure for Sunny Glen. Part of the deal was permanent amenity access for this house, written into the county's official land records. Madison knows it's legit. She signed a reaffirmation of that agreement 3 years ago. He emailed me the documents, everything. Signatures from the original developers, a stamped covenant filed with the county, and even a copy signed by Madison herself." Donovan added, "She just wants to erase anything that threatens her fantasy of exclusivity. You're not the first tenant I've had problems with her over, but this is the first time she's involved the police." I called an old college friend, Naomi Quinn, now a real estate attorney. She confirmed that what I had was a covenant running with the land, fully legal and enforceable. Her advice was simple: print it. Carry it. Next time, don't back down. So I went back to the pool 3 days later, documents in hand. And just like clockwork, Madison showed up. This time, she had a man with her, a board member named Craig who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "I told you before," she barked. "You're trespassing." "I'm not," I said calmly, holding up the paperwork. "This agreement gives me legal rights to be here." She didn't even look at it. "I'm calling the police." This time, I stayed. When Officer Jameson arrived, I handed him the documents and calmly explained the situation. Madison hovered nearby, spitting out phrases like unauthorized access and public nuisance, but the officer took his time reviewing everything. After a long silence, he looked at her and said, "Ma'am, these appear valid. This is a civil matter, not a criminal one. This gentleman has legal grounds to be here." Her face went red. She pulled the officer aside and whispered something heatedly. I caught snippets: safety, another failure, 10 years ago. That phrase again. Failure. What was she referring to? Officer Jameson came back and shrugged at me. "You're free to stay, but just watch your back. This isn't the first time she's tried this." The next morning, I found a letter taped to my door, a $500 fine for unauthorized facility use. The HOA had no jurisdiction over my property, so this was just harassment. Naomi laughed when I told her, "They can't fine you. They don't govern your property. Save the letter. It's evidence." That night, I shared the story with my neighbor across the street, a retired teacher named Priya Desai. Her reaction was immediate. "Oh, Madison?" She snorted. "That woman fined me for having a non-compliant bird feeder on my own porch. And I don't even live in Sunny Glen. She thinks she's running a gated kingdom." Priya told me the HOA had been shifting boundary markers, unofficially, trying to assert control over more properties than legally allowed. She's been inching the map line closer to Lake Haven for years. You're just the first to push back hard enough. I started digging through public records. And sure enough, the HOA's boundary map didn't match the original developer's site plan. Someone had quietly filed a boundary adjustment application a decade ago, later withdrawn after protests. The applicant? Madison Langley. Then I stumbled upon a small article in a local archive. 10 years ago, Madison had resigned from her former position as treasurer of another HOA, Harborview Hills, amid rumors of financial irregularities. No formal charges, but plenty of smoke. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. I wasn't just some guy who used the wrong pool. I was a threat to her carefully constructed empire, a reminder of a deal she wanted to disappear and a witness to her abuse of power. With Naomi's help, I prepared a packet of documents: the covenant, the maps, the past board minutes. I also created a side-by-side overlay of the original boundary lines versus the current ones. It was undeniable. That month, Sunny Glen held their regular HOA meeting. According to their own bylaws, neighboring residents could attend as observers. So I went. The room buzzed with tension. Madison spotted me and tried to stop me from entering, but board member Craig awkwardly reminded her of the observer clause. The meeting dragged on until Madison introduced new business, a proposal to install keycard entry at the pool and increase security patrols, funded by a special assessment. Several homeowners looked confused. What triggered this? One asked. Madison mentioned recent unauthorized incidents, carefully avoiding saying my name. When she finished, I stood up. "My name is Griffin Rhodes. I believe I'm the incident she's referencing, and I'd like to clarify a few things." A woman near the front turned and said, "Let him speak." I explained my situation, presented my legal documents, and displayed the original developer's site plan. Gasps filled the room as I pointed out how the HOA map had subtly changed over the years, gobbling up parts of Lake Haven. These changes were never authorized by the county, and this pool access agreement was legally signed and reaffirmed, even by your current president. That's when Donovan walked in and stood beside me. "I was one of the original investors in this development," he said. "Madison's denial of this agreement is not just unethical, it's illegal." Then Craig, the reluctant board member, spoke. "I've reviewed the records too," he said. "Griffin's documentation checks out." Madison signed the reaffirmation herself. The room erupted. Homeowners demanded audits, boundary reviews, and answers. The special assessment was tabled. A motion to suspend Madison passed unanimously, except for her own vote. The next morning, every Sunny Glen resident received an anonymous email. It contained 5 years of HOA financial records, with detailed notes on suspicious expenditures, overpriced landscaping contracts, payments to consulting firms owned by Madison's relatives, and legal bills labeled General Counsel that were actually for personal boundary dispute consultations. The sender? Craig. He later admitted it to me in private. "I couldn't let her keep getting away with it," he said. "But I couldn't do it publicly either. You gave me the push I needed." 2 weeks later, Madison filed a lawsuit against me personally. She accused me of trespassing, defamation, and property damage. Naomi smiled when she saw the court summons. She just opened the door for us to put everything on the record. The courtroom was packed the day of the hearing. Judge Valerie Monroe presided, a sharp, no-nonsense woman known for her intolerance of pettiness. Madison's lawyer painted me as a disruptive outsider. Naomi calmly countered with documentation, legal precedent, and a timeline of Madison's behavior. And then, Naomi dropped the final bombshell. Your Honor, we believe the plaintiff attempted to fraudulently acquire a section of Mr. Creed's property 10 years ago through falsified documents. The covenant in question was created as part of a settlement agreement after the fraud was discovered. The courtroom went silent. Madison froze. Judge Monroe peered over her glasses. Ms. Langley, did you attempt to claim property using forged documents? Madison stammered, but Naomi cut her off with the county investigator's report. The judge ruled immediately the HOA's lawsuit was baseless. I had full legal rights. Madison was ordered to pay my legal fees personally, and Judge Monroe referred the matter to the district attorney for investigation into ongoing fraud. The fallout was swift. Madison resigned. The new board issued a public apology. They invited me to join a committee on cross-neighborhood collaboration. And a month later, I received an envelope containing a laminated pool pass with my name printed on it and a note from Craig. Thanks for standing your ground. You helped all of us. Now, there's a plaque by the pool entrance that reads, "This facility is for the shared enjoyment of Sunny Glen and Lake Haven residents, because neighbors are stronger together." Sometimes all it takes is one person refusing to be pushed out of a chair to make room for justice. And sometimes, the line between trespasser and trailblazer is nothing more than a clause in fine print, and the will to read it.